So it has lots of flowers.
Stress.
Yeah.
They're good producers. This is a good choice in the ground or in a container.
Get your mouth,
So
John.
it's some form of stress on the plant that's causing them to abort the flowers.
Or lack of pollination. I've had a severe shortage of bees this year. First 2 weeks my squash was in bloom, I had no squash production because we didn't have any bees, and then all the bees showed up. And anybody needs some zucchini or cooked eggs or anything like that? Production has changed. Some people, it's the only time of year they lock their house for fear that the neighbors will come fill the kitchen up with zucchini. But I'd say do anything you can to get bees in there as well. That's one of the big reasons I think they're not setting fruit. Yes, sir. Yes, yes, ma'am. I'm sorry.
I had a question about making compost tea. I had gotten one of these little net things in a hole of a 5-gallon bucket and then with a sort of aeration like in a fish tank. Is that a better way to do it than just putting like 1/3 of a 5-gallon bucket with compost and water in it and turning it a couple times a day? I mean, the vermicompost, the worm tea, I use that all the time, and then it doesn't have all that, stuff in it, and you can just spray with it.
Big difference in compost tea and compost leachate. Why don't, Bruce has worked with Elaine Ingham over the years, so why don't you comment on that?
Yeah, there's still out there some folks that recommend you put 1/3 of a bucket of material in there and put water in it and stir it. That scares me a lot that it's not going to go aerobic. It's going to go anaerobic pretty doggone fast. You're better off to use much less material. See, what you want to do is, in layman's terms, is knock off the good guys you want and then have them multiply. So you don't need all that material in there. That material is just a source for the guys you need. So if you get a couple of hands full or a little more in I use a paint strainer from the big boxes because I can't find anywhere else, and a lot of aeration, you're going to get a much more effective tea. You're going to be much more likely to have it aerobic, and you can tell. I have a microscope. I know Bob does now. Everybody has a microscope, but your nose is a pretty good indicator. It ain't ties. If it smells like ammonia, it's probably ammonia. It's probably urine. If it smells rotten, it's probably rotten. So you don't want to use that. If it smells earthy and has a nice, aerobic kind of smell to it, it's probably pretty good. Now you're not counting the numbers like we do, but you vary that. You use different materials. You use vermicompost. You use your compost from your area is almost always one of the best. But yeah, I would say, unless somebody disagrees, and if they disagree, I say you're better off with less material, more aeration. Now, I think you could over-aerate. I think you can make it so tumultuous that it beats up the fungus. So what you want is a good, I think it should look like boiling water. If I had to give you lots of small bubbles are better than big bubbles because you have more surface. And it's very simple with some air stones and keep them clean. And a 5-gallon bucket will do a pretty big garden. I mean, it doesn't take that much stuff.
Just aerate it for 24 hours?
I do this, and I have not used I've gotten lazy. I used to use my scope with regularity, but once I do it pretty much the same, I've gotten pretty lazy. I air it from 10 to 12, 8 to 12 hours. And then I pull the bag and let it finish for the 24 hours after I've taken the source out. I don't know if you have to do that or not. I just dump it back in the garden. And it works very well, and I put all kinds of stuff in there now. Sometimes I put some oats, and sometimes I put some grain, and some manure, real manure sometimes. I think variation, not keeping the same formula, is probably a good idea.
My
And so
business partner and I paid a lot of money to go take one of Elaine's courses one time, and they had a great brew-off where we analyzed all the teas to see which one was best. Malcolm's was the very best tea with his $10,000, $12,000 machine.
No, $5,000.
$5,000. Whatever.
$30,000 trailer.
Yeah, and the second best tea out there was Bruce's with his $30 tea bucket. So Malcolm, why don't you and John have both made a world of compost tea. Why don't y'all talk a little bit about good compost teas?
Well, everybody can afford a $5,000 tea machine. So what I usually do, if I just need a little bit and I didn't want to crank up that machine, I got a small barrel, and I got small rock in the bottom of it, and I fill it up full of compost. I got a spigot at the bottom of the barrel, and I got 1/2 inch gravel, 1/4 inch gravel, about 6 inches of it down there. Fill it up with compost, run water through it, and then catch the tea. So it's actually compost leachate is what I'm using. then wouldn't that be as good as the tea itself?
It's certainly good, I just don't think you have the concentration. At least that's what Elaine taught us, is through the tea brewing process, you're increasing the volume of microbes. Not necessarily, you're not increasing the diversity, but with bacteria reproducing every 7 minutes or something, just a brewing process, as I understand it, greatly increases the amount of microbial life.
Nature don't do it that way, does it?
Sometimes nature needs a little help. John?
I brew about 100 gallons of compost tea a week, and it's always a beautiful product, and we do use a microscope. We use a microscope in the store for just about everything that comes in, whether it's disease on a plant or looking at insects, and we have a screen, we show it to the customers when they come in. And that's how we know when the compost tea is ready. We keep checking it, and there's a certain magic point when it's ready. And it is a higher quality. You know, I wish one of us would have thought about this a long time ago and improved the compost tea, but in the traditional way, the way I first learned about it, it was in a container. I learned a lot about organic gardening from a little magazine called Organic Gardening and Farming. That was one of the best sources for me. And so it's a little tiny book made on one of the first recycled papers, as a matter of fact, in the magazine. Bob Rodale did this. And so I learned to make it in the traditional way, putting compost in a bucket, stirring it, but it didn't sit there till it had gone anaerobic. We'd go ahead and use it the next day. It wasn't stinky. And so we were controlling leaf diseases and improving the soil quality. All of these things occurred, but one day somebody put a bubbler in there and made a new, different type of compost tea. And that's where I first saw Malcolm too. He was on the cover. What was it, October 1960 something, I believe. Long time ago, that's right. And there he is standing on a big pile of compost with a shovel, looked like a hero. And I found out he was from San Antonio. And so I started following this guy and sneaking into meetings, sitting in the back of the room, everywhere, and just learning as much as I could. That was one of the best resources right there, Organic Gardening and Farming magazine. And I got to read it every day, because it was small enough to keep on the back of the toilet right there, so it was always available. They changed the format, and I just don't get to read it so much anymore. The book's too big.
Well, listen, I want to go back for just a minute now, and we've got three, in effect, bottlers and manufacturers up here. I'd like all of us really to talk about what is organic. What do we trust? And Bruce certainly, knows all about the foods and things like that. When something says organic, what do we look for in a product? And is it important that it have that OMRI certification or whatever? Because I know you have to jump through a lot of hoops if you want to put that little sticker on there or have it say USDA certified organic. And I'll just open it up. One of y'all pick up the microphone and go.
Stuart's the best.
My thoughts on organic is doing everything you can to stimulate the life of the soil, the health, not doing anything to get in the way of nature doing its job. That's the simplest definition. If you go into certified organic, then you have a list of things that you can do and cannot do, and it gets very, very complicated. So we do not show OMRI certified on our products. We have some that are certified organic for the people that are growing crops for certified production. We have to leave some things out, change some things, and we do have molasses, we have a biological activator, humic acid, seaweed, orange oil, that are certified for the grower that is selling your product as a certified product, end product. If you're doing your backyard, your garden, for your own consumption, go the simple route. It's a lot easier.
John.
I know Malcolm has a whole different opinion about organics and the certification program, but it was partly designed to keep people from using chemicals but showing up at the marketplace and saying they were organic. There was no way to determine this. So they may have been sprayed with something, malathion, a couple of weeks before that, but the term organic wasn't well defined. Matter of fact, a few years back, I'm sure Malcolm remembers this, that you would say organic and it didn't mean anything. Are these tomatoes? Is that what they are? And we go to the market with them. I had a small organic farm here near Floresville, and we raised a lot of tomatoes and had chickens and all. And I couldn't find the market for them. You know, I'd walk up and say, these are organic, and it didn't make much difference. Malcolm already had the health food stores. And so we'd go down to the flea market with our products. And, you know, we'd call it organic.